Agradecemos a nuestros panelistas.
We want to thank our panelists for their participation.
En este primer panel de
Without a question, in this first inauguration panel, the terms of the conversation were established, and as well as the expectations to find solutions.
A continuación, tendremos el panel que se titula
Now we will have a panel called Artificial Intelligence in the Criminal Justice Systems, Challenges and Opportunities, which will be led by Emilio Saldaña, co-founder and CEO of magazine Hugo, and as well as a journalist. Here we will have Felix Castro Espinosa, the president of the Mexican Society of Artificial Intelligence, Antonella Stringini, academic coordination of the program of update in artificial intelligence and the law faculty in the University of Buenos Aires, and Sarah Hirsch, analyst in investigation in Chrome. In this panel, we will address the current situation of artificial intelligence in the criminal justice systems, as well as the challenges and opportunity areas. And we will also analyze the benefits of the use of artificial intelligence in the justice processes. Now I'll give the floor to Emilio Saldaña. Thank you very much. I'm very glad to welcome you. Hello, everyone, because I have the opportunity to lead this panel to see what are the challenges and the opportunities. As it was mentioned, I am going to talk about our panelists, our guests. Thank you very much, Felix Castro Espinosa, president of the Mexican Society of Artificial Intelligence. Your presence and your having here with us is very important. He's also a research professor in the Autonomous University of the State of Hidalgo, and he's also a member of the Researchers Project in CONACYT, as well as the president of this Mexican Society on Artificial Intelligence. Welcome. And I also want to welcome Antonella Stringini. Besides being as an academic coordinator of the program of Artificial Intelligence and the law faculty in the University of Buenos Aires, she is a lawyer from the University of Buenos Aires with a specialization in smart law. And I think that this is very important because we have the opportunity to go deeper in these topics. And I also want to welcome Sarah Hirsch, who is also an analyst of intelligence in Kroll, Mexico. And she has also collaborated with different research and strategy projects where they have developed computing learning strategies that can give strategies and tactics. And I think that this is very exciting to those who are interested in these topics, to be able to gather the experience that we have with Felix, Antonella, and Sarah. Welcome everyone once again. Thank you very much for being here. And the first question would be kind of a mandatory question. What is the current status quo of artificial intelligence when we talk about criminal justice systems in Latin America in general? So Antonella, if it's okay with you, please go ahead. Good afternoon in Argentina. Good morning, everyone else. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. It's an honor for me to participate in this panel. Since a few years ago, we have started doing some pilot testing on the concepts of the application of artificial intelligence in criminal justice. This has been, at least in Argentina, where we started, this was given with two techniques that are able to give artificial intelligence, which are automation and the use of intelligence. First, I would like to say that the criminal area is really large, and I would like to start with gender violence, which are very sensitive issues that are within justice and that always require an efficient and quick response. And many times the criminal justice systems are collapsed because of the number of claims, and sometimes we cannot have this timely response, and this is also very relevant. To give us an idea, in Argentina, there are multiple claims every day that are presented by people who suffer gender violence, and they are done in different centers. They can be specific centers or maybe directly with the law enforcement. And when this comes in different centers and different places, we find that we do not have a standardized register where we can, a record where we can find who is doing this claim, how many claims are being done, and we cannot have a control or specific analysis of each of these complaints, and each of them end up receiving the same treatment. And many times this lacks the criminal investigation because we don't have the resources or the time. And the other scenario that I wanted to establish is that artificial intelligence could be a great ally to make this process more human, the process that we are seeing with thousands of people. And this can help us reach this efficiency and efficacy from these assistance to people. I think that this would be very important. Artificial intelligence is going to be in a more human way, not this cold thing that is trying to solve things magically. We're talking about artificial intelligence, and what we mean by artificial intelligence. Is it technology? Yes, but there is not a unique definition. But the idea that we are trying to have within the laboratory of artificial intelligence from the law faculty, where we are having these projects for the public projects in justice, is that this group of technologies is going to complement the technologies and the resources that humans have. And on one hand, we have data because all of these systems are going to process large amounts of data. And on the other hand, human beings. It is us, people, who are going to design, develop, and incubate a system that is going to be applied in justice or in other public or private organizations. So people are who will determine the application and use of these systems. Therefore, I think that it's very important to clarify, even more in the cases that we're talking about gender violence in justice. In general, there are different techniques that can be used. In this case, I consider that the ones that bring most benefits from are automation, smart detection, and smart assistance. Briefly, what do each of them allow? Smart assistance, in order to complement or supplement human capabilities through voice or through a chat, is going to provide a result. Automation is going to allow us to gather or link information with documents in order to have human intervention. And smart detection is going to be able to identify documents starting from different criteria, from analyzing these large data volumes. This is what we are going to have in the second intervention. I will talk about specific cases where we can use that. This is a very good topic that you are developing. This is amazing. Sarah, please go ahead with the current status that you consider that artificial intelligence systems have in the criminal justice systems in Latin America. How is it? Thank you. I would like to thank Antonella for addressing this topic, because I think that it's a great overview of what this is about. I think in Latin America, there are several points that need to be highlighted. Mainly, the way that we see data and how the government is addressing this data collection. Because the main topic, something that has also been highlighted, is not being afraid of these artificial intelligence tools. If you read any scientific paper that uses statistical techniques to understand and to process information, that is what these artificial intelligence tools actually does. So This is a very important topic where we have the data that are being used. It's not that we just create something out of nowhere. There are no government robots or anything like that. There are a lot of databases, really large databases that are used as the raw material to do this analysis. So what artificial intelligence, which is something new, what it does is that it classifies per human being. Before, human beings used to do all the classification, and right now we are incorporating other tools. So in this regard, we also have an overview of artificial intelligence in Latin America through this glass of data policies. What are the data that the government are gathering or collecting in any country on their citizens, which is data quality? For example, data quality means how accurate are they? Do we have all the data for all people? Or are there any areas where we have so many data and other areas where we don't have anything? Or for instance, the way that the data collection is being done changes throughout the years. Can that also affect the quality or the results from these tools? So for instance, the tools for the identification and selection of participants in a program. We have a database that has supposedly all the citizens of a city. And there we have the name, we have the date of birth, the place they live, and their income. And if the way we organize those data changes throughout the years, we can only use the data that is available for a specific year. So I know that I am more familiarized with the policies in Mexico, and in the last few years, the way data collection is done has changed a lot, and the way we store this data and the access we have to it. So I think that, and maybe my colleagues can talk more about the data in Latin America, but I think that's what it does, what this potential overview of artificial intelligence can do in Latin America, which is to give more efficiency, to make it more available, and also privacy. To what data does government have the right to have access? All of this is going to affect the quality and the accuracy of those tools that we are using. Thank you very much, Sarah. I also think that this is amazing. You are both talking about great topics for this first round of questions. And obviously, Felix, I would like to know what your perspective is. How do you see that these artificial intelligence systems are right now in the criminal justice systems? Thank you very much, Emilia, for giving me the floor. It is a pleasure for me to participate in this panel with Antonella and Sarah, precisely because they have set very specific points and very important points. Before going into that, I would like to do a very brief introduction, if you allow me, of what artificial intelligence is, and something very important, which is what artificial intelligence is not. Even though artificial intelligence is not a new topic, because it's something that started around the last century by the late 50s, and of course, compared to other sciences, this is new, but we are living a summer, as we may say, of artificial intelligence. We see it everywhere, and we can apply it to any context of our everyday life. And this is a combination of things. From the machines that we have, the hardware or the physical parts, as well as the evolution of the softwares, the development of the systems. So what things are there of artificial intelligence applied to justice? In the last few months, I started doing a search of what things are there. And of course, as Antonella said, we are giving the first steps. There are first steps in many places where they are doing laboratory tests in very specific justice issues. For instance, in labor issues for very specific cases, they have used efforts, for instance, in Australia, London, and here in Latin America, as I could see, in Argentina, they have a concept, a very advanced concept of artificial intelligence applied to justice. And in Mexico, I don't think it's very clear, but I would like to say that artificial intelligence has tools that may, of course, support greatly to the contribution or to the solution of many justice issues. For instance, to make justice more agile. We have things such as natural language processing, and this can help us a lot to identify some things. For instance, there have been some efforts in other areas to identify, for example, lies through text, to identify people who have suicidal thoughts, or of course, in the justice area, this part of natural language processing may be very useful. And something that was also mentioned in a different way by Antonella with most of the cases that exist, and Sarah with most of the data that exists right now, there is an area in artificial intelligence called case-based reasoning, and this may support or contribute a lot to justice. And there are a lot of similar cases that have been addressed by experts, by different people that have contributed to these cases. And I am sure that these automation tools, as Antonella mentioned, can support a lot these issues. There is another important area in artificial intelligence called clustering, which is about taking a lot of data and identifying those that are similar. We can cluster very similar cases, maybe say all of these are related to gender violence, but there is this component of something else, and a lot of different things, in such a way that these artificial intelligence tools can analyze all the similar cases and identify patterns that help us make decisions. Both colleagues mentioned something very important. There are a lot of cases and there is a lot of fear, not so much in artificial intelligence, but they have discriminated or changed something. And I would like to talk about it later, but I want to close right now with a phrase. Technologies and artificial intelligence algorithm does what we tell them to do and what they learn from data. Wonderful, Felix. Thank you very much. You're actually right. We hear artificial intelligence, and in a wrong way, we think that the artificial intelligence's decision is the last call. And I think that we are very far from that. I would like to thank you, Felix. Also, I would like to talk to Antonella, if you can go deeper on what you mentioned in the previous participation and how to relate that with the challenges that artificial intelligence has and its application within the criminal justice systems in Latin America. What you were saying about the artificial intelligence, I think that this, what they mentioned about artificial intelligence having the last call, but no, we always have the human factor, and we can make an automated decision. They can predict the solution to a case, but it's always a human being who is going to do everything else after that. And that is going to be fundamental. And for me, that is essential, especially when we're talking about justice and when we are making a decision for the citizenship who is at stake on the other side. That was the comment that I think is very important. Regarding what are the risks or challenges that these systems present, they are a lot. And as Sarah said, they are very related to data. Because when we process data, we will have to guarantee certain conditions or minimum conditions in this data. And on the one hand, it is fundamental that we guarantee transparency, being able to get an understandable explanation on how the artificial intelligence systems choose one decision instead of another one is fundamental as well to have, in order to have this transparency, and also maximum access to algorithm for being able to know how these data were processed and how this information was treated. Maybe if the access was granted in an external way, that may lead to the transparency of systems. Also, the traceability of data, being able to explain step by step the different operations that were performed through this system from the beginning until this process ends. Also, that something that my colleagues mentioned is non-discrimination of the algorithm, because many times these systems may reproduce the biases or the intentions that humans have, depending on who is designing the systems. Therefore, it is important that we minimize to the maximum this bias that may have the systems, that also may give us a result, something different in human rights. And whereas these are some challenges, they also bring a lot of opportunities. For instance, in the case of the cause analysis for gender violence, artificial intelligence will give us also tools and the means to implement the things that people have been performing. For instance, through smart assistants, where we can give a conversation through a website by creating or by taking a complaint and creating a smart questionnaire where we establish standardized questions in order to set a specific type of violence that may be given to some cases. If people are suffering from economic violence, or if they are victims of physical violence, they need specific questions. And this is something that requires smart questionnaires that can be filled in a quicker way that in order to help people. And also these are data that are obtained, and we can create databases that can be applied in different justice systems. For example, one person may have done one complaint in one area and then they move to another place and they are taken as isolated or separate cases. So this is a way to optimize these internal processes in justice, and also to have this accountability, that the judiciary can also have the responsibility here. And also one of the most specific aspects of artificial intelligence, maybe there is a complaint by a person that is not the correct one. There are different names, a last name or different letter. They can be different people. And this is for the person that is being the victim of the violence and for the other people that may be confused. So these are great opportunities in order to take on these challenges. Thank you very much, Antonella. You were talking about the importance of inputs, of what we are giving artificial intelligence in terms of data, in order to have expectations of what we would expect to rescue from that. And in Mexico, I would like to know, in terms of these challenges, what is your idea in Latin American terms? And that's why we were asking with this anticipation. We also have a very important topic when understanding that sharing data doesn't always mean to deliver them, as you were saying. I can consult, validate, verify. I can even do a blind query. Is there specific data that I'm looking for it? Yes, well, that's it. So tell us, what are the challenges when understanding the use of data in Latin America that artificial intelligence may have in the criminal justice systems? Yes, I think that my answer will be linked to the answers of my other two colleagues. Well, I'm trying to organize my thoughts because this panel is very interesting. On the one hand, in Mexico, we are still gathering the knowledge of the possibilities of artificial intelligence. This means that there is a need for data. And data means a need for homologated systems. And I think that the great challenge is there because we have a lot of systems that have been there for several years. We have a great talent, a great effort and possibility of data analysis, but data themselves are not homologated. And when I say homologated data, I mean my previous example of this database that has a name, a date of birth, place where people live, and income. For instance, if in the area of name, some people just put their first name and other people put their first and middle name, that column is not useful anymore. Those data is not useful because they are not homologated. And if they can imagine all the variations per place of living, income, and even the way where you put the number, it is important to have that in order to analyze these issues. And if you have an Excel spreadsheet that is very short, it's okay. But when you have all the citizens of a city in just one database, that becomes a task itself to homologate all those databases. And I think that there we have the first challenge in order to be able to use these tools in a better way. And also to have the knowledge of what artificial intelligence is, to remove this fear. We have always had this intelligence or intelligence as a sector. And also, it is a very important tool for decision making because the decision maker cannot process all the information of all the citizens at all times. So this intelligence, even though we think of government intelligence as something related to spies or something like that, it's actually about the collection and processing of a lot of data so that decision makers can make better decisions. So artificial intelligence supports this work. And as Antonella mentioned, in the end of the day, this is in the hands of people that are going to use this information and that are developing these tools. This is very related to the bureaucracy structure where we are having this information. So there are two parts. In terms of the artificial intelligence tools, as Felix mentioned, the clustering, these words, the use of words are ways of classifying data. And when they are classified, you have an algorithm automatically, and that helps us to classify more data, basically, in most of the cases. And that's what can be used for many objectives. So in that process, we can be wrong in two moments. We can make mistakes when we collect the data. The algorithm may fail when they don't have all the variables, the proper variables. If we want to assess a woman in certain aspects, yes, she is a woman, but we are not taking into account their ethnicity, their income, their place of residence, their marital status. All of those things may create an algorithm that guides us in the wrong direction. And then we have the decision maker or a public officer that needs to take this information and make a decision with this information. So this person also needs to be responsible in order to make this decision, and that will also be a challenge to establish the proper policies for a responsible decision making. I love these things that you are sharing, Sarah, and all of the things that you were all sharing, but this last thing that you mentioned is also related to what we were saying about artificial intelligence not being a solution or a platform in regards of the decisions that we make. It's just a tool that should help us, as Antonella was saying, even more when we're talking about a determination of the status of a person or a citizen, of finding them guilty or not, or making them responsible of a crime that may or may have not done. So Felix also mentioned, well, Sarah mentioned this word of the decade. She mentioned algorithm, and we are all like, wow, this is something to be afraid about. But then I go to Felix and I ask him, what are the challenges of using artificial intelligence, the challenges that we face in the criminal justice systems when we talk about this fear of hearing the word algorithm? Because right now, with all the things that we have heard, I hear the word algorithm and I hear something like a black hole or something that where I cannot go into because it's algorithm. So what are the challenges that we need to tackle there? Thank you very much, Emilio, for the question. I would like to start my participation with something that I mentioned in the last part of my last participation, something that Sarah and Antonella mentioned in a very clear way, that the artificial intelligence tools do what we tell them to do based on an algorithm or what they learn from the data that we give them. If you allow me, there are two large areas in artificial intelligence: the inductive part, which is the one that learns from data, and the other one where we tell them a series of things for the algorithm to do. These are two large areas, and I'm going to give you an example. The one of the data was already mentioned, which is related to a whole data analysis area. This is something that is going to give us something real. The standardization or homologation of data is also one of the greatest issues. And on the other hand, we have something that is not new, which are the expert systems. And these are basically systems that where we give the knowledge and we take this knowledge from human experts. I take a medical expert and I start asking them a lot of things with a specific part. I organize that and I feed that to a system in such a way that the system may use this knowledge to make decisions. And something very important that was mentioned by my colleagues, these are also support systems for decision makers. And here I would like to mention something, and I would like to do a parenthesis on what they have mentioned of transparency, data privacy, and the ethical principles that were mentioned. I need to say that in the last few years, from the last 5 years until now, there has been a really great effort of the international community to regulate artificial intelligence, to generate guidelines, and to establish ethical principles that allow us to validate and guarantee that artificial intelligence tools don't do inappropriate things. There are very known cases that in order to identify a person, there are a lot of biases that identify that person as someone who they are not. And this is not a problem of artificial intelligence. Sarah mentioned it. One of the problems is quality of data. If I am going to train an artificial intelligence system to identify that they are a man or a woman, and it turns out that I trained them with 10,000 images of women and only 100 images of men, I'm sure that they are going to be wrong with men and not so much with women. So this data must be balanced.
There are several efforts here in the community. We have a series of principles. Even we had some principles I don't remember last year. And we have to have this AI systems apply to justice. They have to be transparent. They have to be equal, egalitarian. They have to be responsible. What they were saying, if an IA system makes a decision, what's the problem? The system or the person making the decision based on IA? On the IA algorithm, there are many efforts being done already. An analysis we even conducted about 2 months ago, there were about 80 groups of ethical principles that have to govern the IA system. So there is a lot of work to do. And yes, this has already been mentioned. AI has been sold, as you can see this in sci-fi, in films that they're going to be governing us and so on and so forth. Let's not fear IA. IA has a lot of potential to support society. We have to fear not using it. If a company does not use it, it's staying behind because its competitors are already using it. If a university is not using IA to support the educational process of its students, careful there because this is already being done elsewhere. So I'm going to stop here for the next block. Thank you. Thank you very much, Felix. This is an amazing remark. This is like the fear when we were kind of learning to ride a bike. We have to keep all proportion, of course, but it's unavoidable to prevent all false, with false positives, which are the fear when we speak about these topics. But there won't be any way to improve this if we do not continue to improve the use of these platforms. When the topic is good and when those who are exposing this, as is your case, well, this goes very fast. Before saying goodbye and thanking our public to come to discuss about this topic with you, I would like to ask you, you have shared with us some of the problems, some of the challenges, and some of the topics on which we have to focus our attention in terms of IA, especially in terms of use by the government and in criminal justice systems. And also when we speak about humanizing these technologies, as Antonella observed during her presentation, and the relevance in terms of gender topics. We want these platforms to be fair, assertive, and they have to allow, and you have already reassured us that it's not the last decision. And the relevance highlighted by Sarah, which data and how are we going to be feeding these data from the government to this type of system? So in so much as we will have data, they are going to be actual and they can have some scope, and then we can be certain about the use of these technologies. Felix, you have shared with us about the relevance of the working methodologies such as clustering, the relevance of uploading a lot of data, look for specific cases. But then we can go to some specificity. So within this world of data, we won't have these false positives and in an important amount. And also, you helped us lose fear of the use of an algorithm, which is not in itself a mean and evil word. It's part of a system that we're going to be educating, and this has been really fascinating. I would like to propose to you for this last round for closure to share, of course, the positive aspects. What are you excited about in terms of technologies for justice systems? Where are the immediate and the long-term benefits that you used to? What are you excited about your work in terms of IA? Because given the challenges that we have discussed, and we will be able to get to nirvana, in that sense, so to speak. Antonella, the floor is yours. Well, I think that the possibility to streamline human rights is essential. The bureaucracy we have seen in the judiciary, the amount of cases, sometimes we lose sight that on the other side, we have a person that is affected in their human rights, and sometimes, family and all of their setting. We have to see beyond and how we can use a tool. So the human rights of people are a pivotal element. So we can take and so which are not in essence when we work within the judiciary, and this will manage to give a better answer to people by the judicial institutions. And also this can be used to prevent any state irresponsibilities. And I think that this has a huge potential because in Argentina, we have such cases because of very informal matters. It's not material matters even. And this is going to decide whether a person will be imprisoned or not. But these are there to help people in that decision making, and this can be a very important ally in terms of state accountability and for the protection of human rights. Thank you very much, Antonella Strongini, Academic Director of IA of the School of Law of the University of Buenos Aires, and she has honored us with her presence here. Sarah Hirsch, Intelligence Analyst and Forensic Analyst at Kroll, Mexico. Go ahead. Thank you. I will say again that I am very excited about the opportunities for bureaucrats, which had an important workload because they have to process a lot of information, and these tools, when used as tools with a good quality of data, they can help them to conduct their work in a better way, in an easier way, and in a more complete way. The government services of the justice system can reach a greater number of people and in a more accurate way. And I am also excited about the possibilities to understand what is happening in the security setting of the country. For instance, we can make studies, or we can take studies from other countries that, for instance, in my case, in a fully independent work, I analyzed a database which was classifying the level of violence of some insurgent groups in the Middle East, according to several characteristics of the organization. This was sexual violence, I have to precise, and based on this, I used IA tools to make a model that later on can be applied to the Mexican context, to have an idea about what we could expect from which groups, what is going to happen, what can exist in this territory, there is a greater openness to know what's happening, to know further what's happening in our reality. Thank you very much, Sarah. Felix, please, your final thoughts. Once again, thank you for your participation and for the opportunity to get to know your knowledge or experience. And he is the director of the Mexican Society of Artificial Intelligence. Without a doubt, IA has tools that are going to be used as support from very simple things, relatively simple, so to speak, in terms of justice, all the way up to very complex ones. A very simple one would concern those known as chat bots, which are those virtual assistants with which we start to interact as a person. And depending on what you will reply based on what this assistant is giving you, well, then you will be moved to one office or the other. And all the way up to very complicated cases like the one mentioned by Sarah. We have a lot of data. We're using data mining and advanced techniques for data analysis to identify costs. And so these behavior patterns can be extrapolated to other settings, and all the way up to the most complicated ones, which are technically spoken as vision by computer, in which through drones, cameras, we can take things. And what Antonella was saying, we can identify whether the person who is being sentenced is actually the one who did things. And artificial intelligence can identify this, whether it's Felix Castro, the one you are presenting right now, based on the picture that was taken. In Mexico, we have a case of the death of a former president. And we know that it was not the same person who was, tried. So for this type of things, artificial intelligence could also be helpful, of course, in combination with biometric exam and things like. But something very important that I would not like to, with which I would like to close my participation without, without skipping it, is the opportunity we have had. I mean, those of us who have the honor to work on artificial intelligence, and we all are governed by a principle called AI for good. Artificial intelligence for well-being. I don't know, someone who is not developing there are things for beneficial goals, and that's they are the relevance of our regulations we were speaking about. Of course, I don't know that there are negative goals here, but this could be the foundation to tackle those problems, and it has happened before in other settings for which benefits of scientific advances are applied, not just for well-being. And this is how we want to close again. And I want to say artificial intelligence is to be used in the benefit of society, and we ask the Mexican Society of the Artificial Intelligence, we are at your disposal, at the disposal of people who work in the justice setting, so we can help them. And of course, we will be happy to help you, and feel free to reach to us. Thank you very much. Felix, thank you very much. And thank you, Mexico Evalúa, for the invitation and the opportunity. So through this second International Forum on Justice and Innovation, we have the opportunity to listen to experts, such experts as we just did. Stay with us, because as you know, this event is going to be held from 16 to 18, the next panels and the next participations. Well, it's going to be clear for you how interesting this is going to be. I'm Emilio Saldana in the teaser, and for me, it's an honor to moderate this panel, to learn from this and to learn from our guests about artificial intelligence and the challenges that the criminal justice systems have and the benefits that they're going to be leveraging. So thank you very much for having been with us today, and have a great day. See you in the next panel. Thank you.